For my educational issue, I want to focus on the lack of high standards and expectations that I think we're placing on our students within our school systems. Very often I see in situations where, students are getting credit for merely completing their work. It's kind of very reminiscent of the whole idea of, everybody gets a trophy for participating, A for effort. And while I think that's a great idea in some ways, in reality, I think we really need to instill hard work and competition within our students, because otherwise it gives them very little incentive to actually work. Um, I guess from personal experience too, I was always a very hard worker in my school, and once I started to realize that I could actually get by with a lot less, my my motivation and my work ethic severely declined. I started, pushing the boundaries and seeing just how much I really needed to do, and uh, I don't think that that was necessarily a good thing. It didn't instill good habits or work ethic in me. Furthermore, I see certain things that alarm me within the classroom in terms of expectations and standards, such as, within an English classroom, not counting points off for spelling or uh, just, very fundamental basic skills that they're not really being held accountable for. And I don't understand when, it became acceptable for us to teach them that subpar work was, okay. Um, in addition, I've noticed that it also from personal examples and from observing the classrooms, everything is very carefully guided and instructed. We're always provided with, pretty strict, guidelines for how we're supposed to complete our work. That I find very often students don't really know how to do things on their own. When things are left open-ended and they're allowed to incorporate any kind of creativity, they almost kind of, stutter and hesitate, and they're not quite sure where to go with it. I think that this problem of the lack of standards exists because we're trying to be too nurturing. We're making too many excuses for our students and trying to, just encourage everyone by making them think that, everyone is doing great. But the bottom line is that the skills need to be taught and they need to be learned. If a student isn't adequately meeting those standards, then I don't think they should just be passed along. Um, the problem with doing this in the earlier grades is that by the time they get to the high school level, those fundamental skills and abilities aren't there. And at that point, it's very difficult to build upon a foundation that has never been set. Um, this is particularly evident in reading skills. Um, if we're failing to develop the proper skills for reading, then that's ultimately going to lead to difficulty in other subjects as well. Whenever you go into a math class and you solve a word problem, that's going to be an issue that comes up. And failing to do so has been evident within some studies that have been done. America's top math students only ranked 25th out of 30 countries when compared to the top students, from other countries in the world. And furthermore, studies show that the students who are already behind grade level by the time they're in the eighth grade often really never catch up. Um, and this can kind of account for the excuses that I was referring to earlier. There's been a 63% increase in our special education classes and within the past 10 years. Um, and these classes are largely comprised of students who are categorized as developmentally delayed, but that's as a result of exhibiting difficulty reading. Um, I think that this is a problem because we're teaching them that just doing enough to get by is all that matters. We're teaching them the bare minimum is sufficient, and that's really just, going to teach them that it's okay to have a lack of discipline and self-regulation. And ultimately, that's going to lead to a lack of passion within one's own work. It's going to produce generations of lazy workers and people who view their jobs as merely that. It's not going to be something that they take pride in. And if there's no passion and what we do, then how can we expect to do it well? Maybe one solution to this problem would be to hold our students more accountable. Not have so many general topics, but start kind of a rigorous process in high school in which students really begin to explore their potential careers. I think this would be something that will make them more motivated to do well rather than, simple menial tasks. We just need to make it meaningful. We need to show how it relates and how it can be applied. And then students will be more likely to view it as something that's enriching their lives rather than simply busy work. And I think that'll make them put more effort into it. And I think if we create an environment where we make them feel as though we're helping them to become what they want to be rather than, like I said, just this busy work, then I think that's going to make all of the difference. To kind of quote maybe a little bit of a cliche quote, it's like if you shoot for the moon, even if you fall short, you'll still land among the stars. So it's kind of like if they really shoot for perfection at, whatever their respective interests and passions are, then even if, they don't quite attain that, they're still going to be very disciplined and prepared. Um, Really, I think everyone would benefit from higher standards and expectations. Just society in general, people will become happier and more satisfied with their personal lives, and in turn, that's going to result in a society of people who are benefiting from the contributions of others while making worthwhile contributions themselves. Um, I guess the cost, however, of this is maybe some hurt feelings of students, maybe a little bit of a parent uproar. I think that uh, the role of parents in our education today is kind of maybe a problem in itself. Maybe not, uh, just something that could be revised. Um, I through talking with my host teacher, I've learned that parents are always defending their child rather than holding them accountable. More often than not, it's the teacher's fault and it's not the child's fault. And I don't think that they're not they aren't holding them accountable for their own actions, and they're not making them, be responsible students. A lot of students moan and groan when anything is asked of them and when they're asked to put an effort into something. And I'm just not quite sure when this became such a bad notion. I kind of thought that that was inevitable, that that was kind of the purpose of school, and that that was maybe understood. Um, the classroom, I'm not so sure that it would look or feel that much different. It might be a little bit more of a serious environment, but that doesn't mean that it has to be at all intimidating or unenjoyable. In fact, I think that one of the keys to following through with these increased expectations would be to have more emphasis on group work and discussions and ideas. Higher standards doesn't mean that the classroom has to be a strict authoritarian atmosphere, just that there's going to be a mutual understanding between students and teachers about what will take place within the classroom. Um, by imposing, low standards, we're showing our kids that we don't really have confidence in their abilities. And for, for the kids who do excel in the classroom, they're becoming kind of bored and unmotivated, while those who, might struggle a little bit just end up feeling incompetent and, also unmotivated. So I think that really, raising our expectations and our standards for our students will, motivate them to do their very best and show them that we really believe in their abilities. Thank you.